Tonight's subject is about robust systems. Now, I guess a lot of you will be thinking systems, here he goes again, talking about stuff that's unbelievably pie in the sky for my business, that it's not worth watching. I urge you to stick around if that's your attitude towards systems, because what I'm not talking about is you building and spending days and days writing some sort of operating manual for your business. What I'm looking for, or what I'm asking people to think about doing, is creating systems in their business that they can use every day to help deliver consistent results within their business. The idea being the tasks that we do most often and we make them consistent. That's the idea behind systems in this instance. And when you start to build the systems up within your business, what you can start to do then is you can start to hand over tasks that you commonly do as the business owner that you feel you have to do to somebody else. And that frees up your time to do other things. And one of the things I like to get people to look at is their highest income generating task. What is it that you do in the business? And it's often the business owner that does the highest income generating task. But if you're doing other stuff, then you may find that the highest income generating task is pushed down and is done less frequently than you'd like to be more successful in business. So something as simple as building a system that allows somebody else to do something that you normally do to free up some time so you're doing stuff that brings in more income for your business. So don't be too down on systems. We can start with the simplest things. And tonight's example is relatively simple. It's a real world example from a customer that I helped about 4 or 5 years ago now when I first started doing the Business of Diagnostics course. And what we discovered was there was a system required for a business locally, and we helped them. We'll look at that in a bit. So when it comes to building a system, your system must be robust. And what do I mean by robust? Robust is an acronym that I use whenever I build a system. And the acronym is ROBUST, robust. And it stands for repeatable results, optimized resources, balanced, user-friendly, simple, and trackable. And that's what robust means in this acronym. So what happens normally is, as a small business, you may have a system that you've developed, and what happens is it's all going okay until it's stress tested. So you might do something in a particular way and everyone agrees and everyone wants to do it in a particular way. However, when you get too busy, or when the business owner's not there, or whatever it is that stress tests that system, whatever it is that causes that system to fall over, it doesn't work. And there are two sort of answers to this. There are, when it all goes wrong, do you see it as an opportunity to improve, or do you see it as a systems don't work? And they're the two options you have. Now, what you need to do is you need to look at your system and find out why it's going wrong. If you do it like that, you see it as an opportunity to improve. So if the business owner isn't there, so you've disappeared for a week on holiday and nothing was done how you expected it to be done in a particular area of the business for that process, for that system. Now, do you just think, oh, you know what? I just have to do everything around here. Or do you think, why did this go wrong? And I've done 15-minute training video on the power of why. And if you ask the question 5 times, why did it go wrong? You get an answer. Ask why did that happen? Then why? The end of it, if you ask why 5 times, you'll know why it went wrong and you can fix it. Now, if you take that attitude, what you're doing is you're continuously improving with your systems. And what will happen is you will build naturally robust systems, because that is the way to do it. You need to continuously look at it and improve. If you just give up and say, oh, no, what systems don't work, then you're stuck doing tasks that aren't high income generating. It's as simple as that. You've got to somehow build a system that frees you up to either take time off to work on instead of in, or to do the higher income generating tasks. That's the whole purpose of systems. There are no other reason. We're not doing them just because we like to fill in forms or write operating manuals. They're not for that, not in my eyes anyway. What systems are for are to free up your time, for you to invest that time however you see fit, whether that be time in yourself, away from the business, time on instead of in the business, or doing higher income generating tasks. So the other temptation is when you stress test a system, is to think, oh, that one didn't work, and you scrap it and write an entire new system. Now, I'd urge you not to do that because some of the ideas you had for your original system are probably going to be okay. They just need tweaking. They just need a little bit of fine tuning to make them work. And then the way to make them work is to look at it and ask yourself, does this system produce repeatable results? So whatever you want the system to do, does it do it? And that's the first thing. There's no point having a system unless it delivers repeatable results. And the next question to ask yourself before you think, oh God, I'm going to bin this one and start again, is think about, have you optimized the resources? And what do I mean by that? Optimize the resources. Basically, have you got the right person doing the right job? Have you delegated that task to the right person? I often call this, have you got the right person in the right seat? Because you can sometimes have the right person in your business doing the wrong job. And it's often the business owner who is the right person in the wrong seat because he's doing low income generating tasks when he could be doing high income generating tasks. So are you optimizing your resources? Is there somebody who could be doing this? Or in my case, anyway, in most cases, somebody can do this better. So that's the second one. When you've built your system, have you got the right person doing the right task? And then you've got to ask, is your system balanced? Is your system balanced? So are the inputs and the outputs at least equal? And what do I mean by that? There's no point building a system that takes up more time than it saves. So the input time and the output, the save time, aren't equal. It takes longer to do than if anyone just did it in any old ad hoc fashion. So that's an example of how you can balance your system. And it can also be, is building a system equal, or does it deliver more value in terms of basic monetary value? For example, having a system whereby you defer a job to somebody else, it could be another business, it could be a freelancer or whatever it is. Does that, though it costs you something, does it bring in more money than if you were doing it, using up your time instead of you doing one of those higher income generating tasks? Is the system user friendly? So is it easy to use or follow? It might be really good at saving time, and therefore the input and output measure is brilliant, but people don't want to do it because it's not user friendly. You've got to make it user friendly. It's got to be the next acronym, the S, simple. It needs to be an easy to simple to understand and operate. So user friendly and simple. Now, most systems are, by their very nature, we try to overcomplicate it, and we're looking for some real highbrow way of doing something that doesn't necessarily need to be that complicated. So I urge you to think about user-friendly and simple methods of doing it and have easy to follow and use instructions. And whatever it is, whatever systems you put in place, whatever apparatus to do that, whether it be a computer system, whether it be a program or a tool, whatever it is you're doing, make it easy to understand and operate. And finally, make sure all your systems are trackable, quantified and monitored, and make sure you use them in some sort of closed loop format. So we're all used to closed loop when it comes to something like an engine management system, where we know that the air fuel ratio should be 14.7 to 1, got a lambda sensor that measures it. If it sees it's leaner than that, it adds fuel. If it sees it's richer than that, it takes fuel away, and it continuously adjusts in a closed loop fashion. That's how our system should work. And the closed loop, the quantified monitoring, is it repeatable and does it produce the results? And that's how you build robust systems. And then what you find is if you continue to improve whatever systems you have in place, what you'll find at the end, when they are starting to be stress tested by either the business owner not being there to do the job, or when it's really busy and people up against it, do they revert to the system or do they go back to type? And if they're using the system, good job. Yeah. However, continue to monitor to make sure it's getting you the results. So at the beginning of the training, I said, I'll give you an example where I helped a local business. And basically, this is a local tire shop. And they had a problem. They identified a problem. They were losing hours and hours every week looking for the lock-in wheel nut. It's a tale that we're all probably familiar with. And So they said, oh, what can we do? How can we improve this? So they had this idea of they're going to ask the customer when they were on the phone or when they did a walk-in where the lock-in wheel nut was, where its location was, and they were going to put that on the job card. So when the tyre fitter, they had an electronic system, when the tyre fitter went in to look at the car reg for his next job, the location of the lock-in wheel nut should have been on the job. So was it repeatable and did it get results? So this method improved things because they had nothing in place before. So if somebody remembered to ask the customer, they had an idea where it was, but more often than not, they were in the usual places and the tyre fitter was able to find them by chance more than by design. And they found that around about 70% of the time, the location of the lock-in wheel nut appeared on the job card and the lock-in wheel nut was where they said it was. And the next thing they looked at is the person doing the job the correct person? So in this case, it sounds obvious, but the person booking it in or the person dealing with the customer is the person asking the question, and the customer's telling them where the lock-in wheel nut is. In terms of optimizing resources, it is what it is. That's how they looked at it. Is it balanced? Is the input and the output measured? So it took an extra couple of minutes to record this information. The average missing wheel nut took about 20 minutes in terms of lost time to find, is what they come up with. So yeah, it was more than balanced. The few minutes it took extra to book the customer in was more than saved by the tyre fitter not having to look for the lock-in wheel nut. Was the system easy to do? Yes, but it was also easy to forget. Just forget to ask. It was easy. I always like to think of it as you could opt out easily, as in just simply not ask. And there was no way to force you to opt in. Was it simple? It was incredibly simple. All they had to do was ask and record it on the job card. So the way they tracked it was they asked basically how often did they need to ask a customer once the car was already in the tyre fitting bay, or they measured how many times it wasn't recorded on the job card. And that's how they got to their 70%. So how could they improve that system? That's what they really wanted to know. And what they did is they changed it from asking the customer where it was to asking the customer to place the lock-in wheel nut on the passenger seat. And when they turned up at the tyre fitting shop, because somebody always has to turn up there, the car didn't get there on its own, not yet anyway. Yeah. They then asked the customer again to check at that point. And that's what the difference was. Now this, in terms of repeatable results, this achieved around about a 90% buy-in rate. 90% of the time now, 9 times out of 10, the lock-in wheel nut was on the passenger seat. Was it optimized resources? What they did now is they placed the onus on the customer not to tell you where it was, but to place it somewhere. What they said was they were going to introduce a charge. I don't think they ever followed through on this, but they were going to place a charge of 20 minutes labor if the lock-in wheel nut was not able to be found, because they'd been given plenty of opportunity. And that stick rather than carrot method resulted in the customers always placing 9 times out of 10 the lock-in wheel nut on the passenger seat. Was it in terms of balance? I think now the garage is doing even less and the onus is onto the customer. Is it user-friendly? Incredible. User-friendly, isn't it? It's dead simple. Yeah. And so therefore the user-friendly and simple, it can't get any easier. Don't even have to record it on the job card. Can you put it on the passenger seat? How do you know if it's working? You look on the passenger seat. Is the lock-in wheel nut there? Happy days. Trackable. The number of times it was on the passenger seat. And they also started to measure the amount of 20-minute charges. I don't think they ever charged anyone because it was so successful.